You're watching Less Than Epic's coverage of the Overwatch League. Enjoy the show.
Hello everyone and welcome to week 5 of the Overwatch League. This will be the last week before we go into a small break. And last week we had some very good matches. We have some pretty good games this week, I think. We are going to go through those for you right now. And at the very end we will discuss the playoffs a little bit. So why don't you go ahead and start us off with week 1, Kinky.
Alright, and I think you mean game 1. But game 1 is Gladiators versus Philadelphia. And we're split on this one right out of the gate. Philly has been on the top tier teams for pretty much all of Stage 2. And since Fisher's arrival on the Gladiators, they have completely turned it around. They're 6-2 in this stage, and one of their victories has been over London. So I really feel like the Gladiators can pull this one out. Myself, along with Rabbit, are going Gladiators. Nova is going for Philly.
Well, I think Kinky kind of summed up what I was going to go with on Philly. I think Philly's going to have a win here, but it is going to be one hell of a good match. This could be match of the week. Who knows?
Yeah, and I'm going with Gladiators just because they have looked so good. I've been betting against them in previous weeks, and just like with London, it's just one of those things I have a hard time doing now. They are quite the new team.
On to match 2 of this final week Overwatch League. We'll have Florida versus San Francisco Shock. I honestly didn't think this was going to be a split vote, but it is. With Kinky and myself going Florida, and Radded going with San Francisco Shock. If you've been watching the Overwatch League for the last couple weeks, you may have noticed a little something happening, maybe brewing down in Florida. Well, technically in LA, but the Florida boys have started to actually walk the walk. This team is looking way better. They picked up a little bit of talent. They're playing way better as a team. I don't think San Francisco Shock can compete with this team.
Well, I'll give my perspective since I'm the Shock guy in this game, even though I'm not a San Francisco guy in general, don't get me wrong. But there are 3 teams that have been on the up from the lower tiers of the league, and that is Gladiators, Florida, and San Francisco Shock. I have loved what Nami has been doing as their main tank, and I actually think that's going to show against Florida. I'm looking at Nami to set up all the space that Baby Bay needs. On to game number 3, we've got Shanghai versus Houston Outlaws. So Houston has been a super downward trending team. They are just really struggling to find the wins, and that was part of Florida's rise actually. They only barely clinched the win against Florida, very barely, and they have just been losing ever since. Shanghai has also been losing, and while their new tank did arrive this week, that tank's probably not going to be playing until at the earliest stage 3. So
I almost think they're not allowed by rule to play until stage 3, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, something about you can't come in between the stages. But we'll see what happens. But we really don't think Shanghai is going to pull out the win. I'm interested to see though how downward trending Houston is. Are they going to have a hard time against Shanghai? That would be interesting. But we're all pulling Houston nonetheless.
Looking at our power rankings, you'll notice them falling in. Can they actually hit the bottom 3?
They're right there at about to enter those bottom 3. They're real close. I would not be surprised if this went to 5 maps, honestly. So kicking off our Thursday schedule, we have, again, the Houston Outlaws taking on the Seoul Dynasty. And as we just mentioned, Houston has been downward trending. They cannot find themselves. They are hurting for certain, and we all chose Seoul.
Enough said about that match. On to our second match. We will have New York versus Dallas. Again, not a really hard match to pick. I would go with the joke we've been pulling the last couple weeks, but I think you guys are tired of it by now. We all picked New York. Dallas has definitely not been looking good, and New York has been looking almost unstoppable, so I think that'll about cover that one.
Almost unstoppable, except for against London, of course. But moving on to our 6th game of the week, we've got San Francisco Shock versus Boston, and we're actually split on this. I know I was gushing over the Shock earlier, but I'm actually going for Boston this game.
Woo!
Yeah, I I don't know. San Francisco is doing better, and they are around the same as Boston in the power rankings, but I think it's a little bit deceptive. I mean, Dream Casper on Boston is just a phenomenal DPS player. I think he's going to overtake Baby Bay. I think that he's going to be able to deal with Nami just well, and yeah, I think Boston's going to pull out the win because of that.
Don't forget about Striker on the Tracer.
Oh yeah, of course. It's it's going to be all part of the system that takes it down, but the parts that I think that make San Francisco a great team, I think can be taken down by Boston.
I'm not going to argue that point. All I'm going to argue is that Boston has not beaten any good teams this stage. Their best win has been over the Valiant, who have been a mediocre team this stage. Even though they're 11-7, they haven't exactly been playing well the past 3 weeks. So I chose San Francisco just based off of what the past 2-3 weeks have looked like. They've looked like a much better team, whereas Boston still is struggling to show that they can still fight for a playoff spot.
Good points on San Francisco, yeah. I would agree with that. Boston has been struggling as well.
So kicking off our Friday schedule, we have Seoul going up against Florida, and we are all taking Seoul. Now, I would not be surprised, however, if Florida did give them a run for their money, especially if Seoul doesn't... There's two things. First, if Seoul doesn't start their usual cast, I could see Florida really giving them a run for their money. Secondly, Seoul has pretty much anchored that at minimum number 3 position going into the end of the Stage 2 playoffs, the little mini playoff for the top 3 teams. So they're probably going to put 95% of their focus for the week against London and New York. And if they do that, they could underperform against Florida, and Florida might actually be able to come away with the win. I don't see it happening. I'm just trying to be optimistic for some Florida fans out there.
If I was betting, I would put money on Florida at least taking a map. And I agree that Florida could give them some difficulty.
Yeah, it'll be an interesting match for sure. This is definitely one of those that if it goes pretty crazy, this is probably the one I'm going to break down. Because I really want to give Florida some time. They're really looking good.
I mean, the other thing to consider is, will Seoul actually play their B team to rest their A team going into Sunday games?
Totally possible.
On to our second match of Friday, we will have Philadelphia Fusion up against Los Angeles Valiant. And across the board, we have picked Philadelphia. As Kinky said not that long ago, Los Angeles Valiant is just downtrending. And they actually, I mentioned this last week, I think, they put out a video on YouTube showing their team is crumbling literally at the seams. They lost their coach. They're fighting amongst each other. They're not getting comms right. They're just struggling across the board. They are a talented team. They showed in Stage 1 that they could be up there with the top of the league, but ever since this little issue that happened within the team, it just festered and caused the team to crumble. It truly shows that Overwatch League at this level, in Overwatch, you need to have good communications and you need to work as a team.
This is a team game. Get out of here. All right, so another team that has the same kind of issues, but earlier in Stage 2, they lost their head coach. Shanghai is going to be taking on London in their next game, and we've all taken London on this game. Shanghai, as I was saying, lost that head coach, really just struggling. Their new players aren't coming here until the next stage. They're just not going to have a chance in this game, especially against a London that just looks phenomenal. So we're taking London.
The only thing I want to throw out there is, I said this in the Power Rankings video, but London seems to struggle against teams that you wouldn't expect them to struggle against, but then they annihilate the top competitors in the league. I don't know what it is, but it just seems to happen. So I could see Shanghai at least taking one map. Alright, so our last day before the end of Stage 2 playoffs, we have Dallas taking on London. And across the board, we've taken London. Since Dallas lost XQC, actually a week before they lost XQC, I mean, this team's just been falling apart at the seams, much like Valiant has. I don't know what's going on internally other than them releasing XQC, but I mean, Dallas just has not been the same team since week 2, I want to say, of Stage 2.
Yeah, I mean, they were going to lose XQC regardless because he was getting suspended again, but they definitely are crumbling at the seams, much like Los Angeles.
This will be one of the teams to watch next stage, though, if you're following along. Taimu is, he's a very good flex player, but tank is probably one of his weakest roles, and he's having to play main tank for the team right now. So that, they're just struggling all around. However, they do have a new tank, main tank player, very, very good. I forget his name right now, but coming online next stage. So I'm actually thinking this team is going to have a turnaround next stage for sure.
In our second game of Saturday, we'll have Los Angeles Valiant at New York X. And we had just beat this already, that Los Angeles is not looking good, and New York is the top team in the league right now. So it's New York all the way.
And on to our last game of the week before the playoffs, that is, we have Boston versus the Gladiators. And we're split on this one again, probably only because Nova's a fangirl. But Kinky and I have taken the Gladiators to win this game, and Nova has taken Boston. From my perspective, I gave it earlier on the Gladiators, super upward trending team. As Kinky was saying, Fissure has just been a phenomenal addition to this team, and it has stepped up the gameplay of all of their other players as well. So I'm going Gladiators because of that.
The only two games that the Gladiators have lost this stage have been against New York and has been against, was it London? I think it was New York and London.
No, they beat London.
Okay, then it was New York and it was Seoul. Those are the only two losses the Gladiators have. The only two losses. And they weren't like they got blown out of the water.
Well, I am a fanboy of Boston. I actually think this will be a close match, and it'll be potential for match of the week also. And, I know it's going to be a tough game for Boston, but like you said earlier, they have the DPS duo. They have a sick diva in Note. They got a good team that's working well together. They're finally starting to get the support role figured out after the Mercy nerf. I feel like that's where they really struggled early in this stage, because they had a really, really good Mercy player who didn't really fit in the Lucio role. Kellex has just been trying to find where he belongs ever since they took his Mercy away. And I feel like Boston can pull it out. I would bet 5 games, though, or 5 maps on this one. It's going to be a hell of a time. Alrighty, boys. Now we're going to look at the old playoff lineup. This will be happening on Sunday. I'm looking at the standings right now, and we have the potential for 5 teams to hit this playoff roster. We know for sure that New York will be slotted in at the number 1 seed. That means they're going to get the first game as a bye. So the second game, we could potentially have London, Seoul, Los Angeles Valiant, or Philadelphia Fusion. Those last 2 teams will need some help to get in, meaning that London and Seoul would have to lose both games, and they would have to win both games. Obviously, Los Angeles isn't looking like they're going to pull off 2 wins right now. So what are you guys feeling for your second and third slots for the playoffs?
Well, the top 3 teams, the New York, Seoul, and London, they all have fairly easy schedules this week. So I really would be surprised if any of those teams dropped a game, let alone more than 1 map this week. So I think that the roster that we're looking at on the Overwatch League site is actually going to represent who we're going to see in the playoffs.
I agree 100%. We all know it's going to be New York number 1, but I really feel like I agree with Reddit. It's going to be London number 2 and New York or Seoul number 3.
And I have to agree too. I can't see London or Seoul dropping any of those matches. So let's do a quick pick here for who's going to win, London versus Seoul.
4-0, third time. It'll be the best breakdown ever.
I don't know if it'll be 4-0, but it's definitely going to be London. Well, no, it can't be 4-0 because they only go whoever wins 3 matches. That's when they call it. I think it'll be 3-1 London, but I'm picking London.
I can't argue against that. I got to go London also. And the last game of the stage for the championship, for the purse, I think it's like 150K. We got New York and possibly London. Drop your picks.
London 3-2.
Yeah, this is going to be another really close game. It's I have such a hard time betting against London against any of the top of the roster. They always surprise, they always pull it out. Prophet just stops being lazy and actually kicks ass right when he needs to. It's going to be London again taking the playoffs.
Well, I have to take the off pick here and go with New York. I just think New York is such a great team. Nobody's really contesting them other than London right now. However, New York gets that extra little rest as they get the first game bye, so I think maybe that little edge can help. I'm going New York.
It definitely helped them last stage.
Did it though? I mean, and then you also have to think the playoffs now are on Sunday instead of Saturday, so all the teams get a chance to at least sleep before they have to play again.
Yep.
Well, there it is, guys. Our picks for the week. Sorry, this one's going to run just a hair longer than usual. We had to squeeze in those playoff picks for you. Hopefully you all enjoyed Stage 2. We will be resuming our coverage during Stage 3. And also look for us to drop a few videos in between the stages with Kinky breaking down some of the top players from the stage. As usual, everybody, get good scrubs.
See you in the next one, guys.
Cheers all. If you like our coverage of the Overwatch League, let us know by liking and subscribing. And if you didn't, let us know why in the comments below. Maybe we can make it better. Thanks for watching, everyone.